Did you know Smash Ultimate has the second lowest number of brand new stages introduced in the entire Smash series? And what's more, only 5 of those were seen in the base game. The rest of the newly introduced stages were each bundled with the Fighter Pass characters as paid DLC. But that still means that we have 16 brand new stages to talk about. And with most of them being paid DLC, a lot more effort and detail was put into them, which means we have more to talk about. So buckle up, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and let's do this one last time. Here are Smash Ultimate's stage origins. The first stage we'll talk about briefly is the opposite of Big Battlefield introduced back in Wii U, Small Battlefield, introduced randomly in version 8.1.0 of Smash Ultimate. Quite literally, this stage is Battlefield, but smaller, with the top platform of normal Battlefield removed and everything constrained a bit more. Visually, the stage is exactly the same as Ultimate's big and normal Battlefields, a completely Smash original concept as all previous versions have been. So now let's move on to our first in-depth stage, New Donk City Hall. New Donk City is found in the Metro Kingdom of Super Mario Odyssey, with the City Hall being the main focal point. Other skyscrapers and buildings also exist in the city, which Mario can run around on to collect moons. New Donk City is based on New York City, with the City Hall being inspired by the Empire State Building. The name of course comes from Donkey Kong, with the mayor Pauline also doubling down on this reference, being the lady that DK kidnapped in the original arcade game. The stage starts out at the ground floor of City Hall. Eventually it will rise to the top of the base of the building, then about halfway up the building, before ultimately reaching the very peak. The platforms will then lower you to the ground again, and the loop will start over. City Hall is really the only reference to building here. Much of the background is incredibly generic, real-life inspired buildings based on New York City, but that's pretty much it. However, an incredibly unique aspect of the stage takes place when the track playing is either Jump Up Superstar or Super Mario Bros. Ground Theme band performance. With either of these, the track will start exclusively with the drum beat, with the drummer being seen at the base of the building. Throughout the duration of the match, other musicians will appear on floating platforms, and when players touch them, it will add their instrument to the backing track and they will join the drummer at the base of the building. In the case of Jump Up Superstar, Pauline can also appear on floating platforms, and when touched, her vocals will be added to the track as well. This feature is based on the segment of the Metro Kingdom, where Pauline tasks Mario with finding musicians to play during the New Donk City Festival, and these exact musicians are the ones that Mario recruits. Jump Up Superstar and the Mario 1 Ground Theme are both songs that the band can be heard playing in Odyssey, which is why these are the songs used by the stage. This stage mechanic only appears for these 2 songs. For any other song, the band members and Pauline will not appear, and instead there will be New Donk City residents at the base of the building cheering on the fight. A couple of background elements can also be seen. At the very top of the building, the Odyssey can be seen flying, the airship that Mario and Cappy use throughout the events of Super Mario Odyssey to get to various kingdoms. It shows that 21 power moons have been captured. However, funny enough, 55 moons are required to get to Metro Kingdom in the actual game, so this is actually a kind of error. Lastly, Captain Toad can be seen at the top of City Hall. In most cases, he's just a timed event appearing on the 3rd loop through the stage. However, if the background track is a song originating from Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, he'll appear in this segment every time. Captain Toad appears in multiple places throughout Super Mario Odyssey, including the Metro Kingdom. Our next stage is a brand new Zelda one, Great Plateau Tower, based on The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. The Great Plateau is the beginning region of Breath of the Wild, where essentially the tutorial for the game takes place. Part of this opening section sees Link using his Sheikah Slate to activate a Sheikah Tower, the very tower that this stage takes place on, down to the Sheikah Slate pedestal just in the background. The stage overlooks the land of Hyrule in the same location that the actual tower in-game does. The Great Plateau is a raised area above the rest of Hyrule, so you have a great vantage point. You can notably see Death Mountain as well as Hyrule Castle, surrounded by Calamity Ganon's dark energy. There are other Sheikah Towers and shrines also peppered throughout. The spire of the tower can be attacked, and after enough damage, it will completely fall apart. This never really happens in Breath of the Wild, though it may be an extension of the destruction that takes place when the towers initially activate. When the tower is destroyed, a platform will appear in the center in the same style as the tower, which is a concept completely original to Smash. After a while, the tower will then repair itself. The appearance of the new platform and the tower repairing itself seemingly uses the same ancient Sheikah technology that's used throughout Breath of the Wild. Also in the background, the Old Man can be seen paragliding onto the tower. The Old Man is a mysterious hermit who tasks Link with completing shrines on the plateau, and ultimately reveals himself as the spirit of King Rome, the former king of Hyrule. He then gives Link the paraglider, allowing him to safely leave the plateau and explore the rest of Hyrule. And as a king, this guy probably has a great lawyer. And you deserve a great lawyer too, which brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Morgan & Morgan. Injured and don't know where to start? With Morgan & Morgan, it's so easy. When you choose an injury law firm, size matters, and innuendos aside, Morgan & Morgan has got you covered with over 800 attorneys across 49 states with 4,000 support staff ready to take your call 24/7. Normally, it's super complicated to submit an injury claim, but with Morgan & Morgan, in 8 clicks or less, you can submit a claim without ever having to leave the couch. And the best part is you pay absolutely nothing up front. The fee is free unless you win, and with over $13 billion won for their clients, they've got the stats to back that up. So next time you need legal services, just dial #law on your phone or visit www.forthepeople.com. Next up, we have a stage representing a new series introduced alongside Inkling, Moray Towers. In the first Splatoon game, Moray Towers was one of the possible stages in the multiplayer modes. It also saw a return in Splatoon 2 as one of only 2 maps at launch that came from the original game. The full multiplayer stage is pretty large overall, naturally to lend itself to Splatoon's type of gameplay, but Smash takes only the section of scaffolding for its use on the stage. At the start of each match, the stage will get covered with 2 different colors of ink, representing the general gameplay of Splatoon. These are all real possible color combinations in the original game, which I think is a cute touch. Ordinarily, the stage appears during the daytime. However, when these tracks are chosen to play in the background, the stage will instead appear at nighttime. This is the Splatfest version of the stage. Splatfests are recurring events in the Splatoon series that feature a theme for players to pick a side of, such as dogs versus cats or SpongeBob versus Patrick. The players on each team compete throughout the Splatfest, and the team with the better overall performance is declared that Splatfest winner. The multiplayer stages are all locked to nighttime during Splatfest, which is why this version of the stage is seen at night. The Splatfest variant also mixes up the possible color combinations a tiny bit, using real colors from actual Splatfest in both Splatoon and Splatoon 2. Both Judd and Lil Judd can be seen on this stage, usually snoozing away, but also dancing during Splatfest and jumping up when a player is KO'd. With 1 minute remaining or a player on their final stock, they'll wake up and hold up flags to indicate the winning players, waiting to declare the final winner. This function is taken from the actual series, with Judd holding up the winning team's flag in Splatoon 1 and being joined by Lil Judd for the same role in Splatoon 2. Lastly, when most tracks are being played, Now or Never will begin playing with 30 seconds left in the match. Now or Never plays in the Splatoon series in the final minute of a multiplayer match. Since Smash changes this to be 30 seconds, the versions of Now or Never found in the game have been remixed slightly to be more fitting. Now let's talk about Dracula's Castle, the companion stage for Simon and Richter. Dracula's Castle is a regular point of interest in the Castlevania series, with the castle often being the final destination of the main character's adventure and where they obviously fight Dracula. Typically, the path up to Dracula features a long staircase that leads to a hallway that ultimately leads to Dracula's chamber. In Smash, this is reduced to simply be the stairway and chamber, as including the hallway would make this a very long stage. There's also usually stained glass in the chamber, which Smash also includes in its portrayal. In the Castlevania series, Dracula's castle is regularly destroyed, so Smash takes this idea and uses it on the stage, making it much more conducive for a Smash battle. In the background, a giant clock tower can be seen, another recurring element in the Castlevania series. When items are turned on, candles will occasionally spawn. When attacked, these candles will drop items, a nod to this same mechanic found in Castlevania. In the background of the stage, Dracula's coffin can also be seen, which is another staple set piece in Dracula's chamber. While mechanically this stage doesn't have a ton going on, its big feature is the number of background characters that appear. Over the course of a battle, multiple enemies and characters from the wider Castlevania series will show up in the background, though none of them will impact gameplay in any way. First is the pairing of the Creature and Flea Man, also known as Frankenstein's Monster and Igor. These two first appeared in the first Castlevania as a 2-in-1 boss fight. Next we have a mummy, another type of boss first introduced in the first Castlevania. The Medusa Head, an enemy that tries to ram the player, again from the first Castlevania. A werewolf, a more common enemy that first appeared in Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Carmilla, also known as Vampira. In most iterations, she appears with an actual body, however her portrayal in Smash is based on her giant mask form as it appears in Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. And finally, Death, Dracula's second in command, first appearing in the first Castlevania as the final obstacle before the player can take on Dracula himself. And speaking of Dracula himself, while he doesn't physically appear on this stage during standard versus mode, his silhouette can appear when lightning strikes randomly throughout the match. Along with his typical appearance, the silhouette of Kid Dracula can also appear when lightning strikes, the appearance that Dracula takes on in the spin-off parody titled Kid Dracula. And that does it for all of the stages that were included in Smash Ultimate's base game. 4 brand new stages plus a small battlefield later on. And so, all that we have left is to discuss the DLC stages, each of which was bundled alongside a DLC fighter.
The first DLC stage is Mementos, bundled along Joker from Persona 5. In Persona 5, Mementos is a palace for everyone's hearts in the core of the metaverse, which itself is a physical manifestation of collective unconsciousness. Mementos manifests in the form of Tokyo's subway system, featuring trains and train tracks. While completely optional, Mementos serves as a great resource for grinding experience, money, and personas. In Smash, Mementos uses the train elements in its portrayal of the stage. However, it also takes beats from art style of Mementos, as well as the general design aesthetic for all of Persona 5. Fighters also splash up pink liquid with every step, an element taken straight from the original game. The stage has a decent degree of randomness implemented. There are only 2 static platforms, but occasionally a third will appear. A giant wall or ceiling can also appear along the sides or the top, blocking that section and causing fighters to bounce off of it when they are hit in that direction. A subway train can also speed by at the bottom, dealing damage to any player that makes contact with it. All of this is likely based on Mementos layout being randomly generated in Persona 5, and it adds to the confusing nature of the metaverse as a whole. Multiple background characters also appear on the stage, all members of the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. First and foremost is the Morgana-mobile. Morgana is a talking cat. However, in the metaverse, he has the ability to transform into a bus, which the other Phantom Thieves ride in to traverse through the metaverse. The Morgana-mobile will drop off multiple Phantom Thieves, who will stand in the background and cheer on the fight. Ryuji, codenamed Skull, An, codenamed Panther, Yusuke, codenamed Fox, Makoto, codenamed Queen, and Haru, codenamed Noir. The final quirk of Mementos has to do with the music. Depending on the track playing and which game that track originates from, the color scheme in the stage will change up. Songs from Persona 5 naturally feature stars in a red, black, and white scheme. Songs originated from Persona 4 will instead match that game's themes, using yellow instead of red with flowers. Songs from Persona 3 make the stage blue with green accents and include clocks in the main platform. The background also includes the moon, all emphasizing the dark hour mechanic of Persona 3.
The second DLC stage was bundled alongside Hero, Yggdrasil's Altar. Yggdrasil is the name of the world tree in Norse mythology, and in Dragon Quest, this tree floats above the land, said to pierce the heavens as well as provide incredible healing abilities. Multiple games in the series feature Yggdrasil in some way, from simply being a location to serving a bigger role in the overall plot of the game. While Yggdrasil makes regular appearances in the series, the design of Yggdrasil's Altar in Smash comes from the design and events that take place in Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age. In this game, the hero and the party collect the 6 orbs, which together are the key to unlocking the path through the World Tree herself. The Luminary was to be bestowed the Sword of Light at the heart of the World Tree, but then a bunch of stuff happens that I don't really want to spoil. Go play Dragon Quest XI, it's amazing. The stage doesn't actually focus on these spoilery parts anyway, so we're good there. The stage features a giant flying platform that travels all over the land of Erdrea, the setting of Dragon Quest XI. The platform that flies around is the actual altar, with the 6 orbs sitting in their respective pedestals. In the actual game, when the 6 orbs are placed in the pedestals, a rainbow bridge appears that the party physically walks on to access Yggdrasil. This doesn't exactly make for an interesting stage though, so instead, Smash has the altar fly in the air along the rainbow path. Occasionally, additional Smash original platforms will appear on the sides as well. With items on, these platforms will contain treasure chests. When attacked, these chests will spawn an item. However, these can also turn out to be mimics, monsters that appear to be chests who will attack the unsuspecting player. Overall, the mechanics of the stage are pretty simple, but there are a fair few background elements that can be seen. Outside of the general land of Erdrea, the World Tree can of course be seen from nearly anywhere on the stage. Slimes also had to make an appearance here, bouncing around in the background. Slimes are a low-level enemy that have been in every Dragon Quest game, and at this point serve as the mascot for the series. Liquid metal slimes can also be potentially seen, though very rarely. Liquid metal slimes are rare variations of slimes that have been a staple since Dragon Quest II. If defeated, they result in a ton of experience, making them one of the targets when grinding levels in Dragon Quest. Its rarity in Smash is naturally based on its rarity in the actual games. Tockles can also be seen throughout the stage, just walking around seemingly minding their business. Tockles are a race of creatures newly introduced in Dragon Quest XI. They live in Tickington, a village that exists outside of time. Tockles enlist the Luminary to assist in correcting errors that have taken place throughout time. In Dragon Quest XI, this results in the Luminary assisting in events that take place in the other Dragon Quest games. Some Tockles can be spoken to in the game, but many are seen and then quickly disappear when approached, behaving similarly to the Tockles found on this stage. Finally, the most obvious background character is the gigantic flying whale Cetacea. Cetacea can be summoned by the Luminary using the Calamus flute in order to fly around Erdrea and access areas that would otherwise be inaccessible, such as havens above, which we can also conveniently see in the background of this stage as well. Alright, you guys know I have been itching to talk about this one, our third DLC stage bundled with Banjo and Kazooie, Spiral Mountain. Spiral Mountain is the first area of Banjo-Kazooie, very aptly named because it has a spirally mountain directly in the center. There are multiple sections to Spiral Mountain, from a rocky area to a waterfall to literally Banjo's house. The area really serves as the tutorial sandbox, with Bottles the Mole teaching you each of your starter moves and each section serving a function to master that move. The actual Spiral Mountain in the center also has a rope bridge that leads to Gruntilda's lair, which kinda makes you wonder why Banjo would choose to live right next door. In Banjo-Tooie, Grunty's Revenge, and Nuts and Bolts, Spiral Mountain has an even briefer appearance, usually serving as an opening area that you then quickly leave. However, much of the design of the stage in Smash is a sort of combination between elements of the original Banjo-Kazooie as well as Nuts and Bolts. The actual battle takes place at the top of Spiral Mountain, the center of the area. Smash gets creative here, and the camera will rotate around the mountain, keeping the characters oriented towards the player and shifting around obstacles and surfaces to better suit the battle. This is a Smash original feature largely made to make the stage more interesting, but it also helps show off the entirety of Spiral Mountain rather than just one specific section. There are multiple background cameos on this stage as well. First, we have the previously mentioned Bottles the Mole. In Banjo-Kazooie, Bottles teaches Banjo and Kazooie about different abilities over the course of their adventure. Next is Mumbo Jumbo, a magical shaman. In Banjo-Kazooie, Mumbo will transform Banjo and Kazooie into a bunch of different forms in exchange for Mumbo tokens. He'll also juggle his eyes in the background, which is one of his possible idle animations from Nuts and Bolts. Next, we have the Jinjos. These are a race of creatures that were kidnapped by Gruntilda and left abandoned in the different worlds. In the first game, there are 5 Jinjos in each world, totaling 5 different colors. In Smash, Jinjos can appear in groups of as little as 1 and as many as 5 at a time, or anywhere in between. Gruntilda Winky Bunyan herself also appears in the background of the stage. Grunty is of course the main antagonist throughout the entire series. She initially kidnaps Banjo's sister, Tootie, to steal her beauty, but after the first game, she just continually has beef with the Baron Bird for defeating her. Grunty will fly around on her broomstick and do her iconic laugh in the background. The final character to make an appearance is Tootie. She's a bit harder to see, appearing down on the ground level of Spiral Mountain rather than being directly visible. She runs around Spiral Mountain, making infinite loops around the area and occasionally being seen if the angle allows. Her running in Spiral Mountain is likely a nod to her running in the intro of Banjo-Kazooie. A common enemy can also be seen here, Buzz Bombs. These enemies were chosen because their ability to fly made them fit quite naturally in the high-up background of Spiral Mountain. Ironically, these enemies never actually appear in Spiral Mountain. Extra honeycombs, which increase Banjo and Kazooie's health, and 1-up trophies, which obviously increase total life count, can also be seen in the background in nearly the exact same places as they appear in the real Spiral Mountain in Kazooie, which I think is a nice touch. Moving on to the 4th DLC pack, Terry Bogard was bundled alongside King of Fighters Stadium. Now, this stage design-wise is pretty unique because it really seems to be a Smash original concept. Maybe inspired by bits and pieces throughout the Fatal Fury and King of Fighters series, but overall nothing is one-to-one. King of Fighters started out as a Fatal Fury game where a tournament literally titled King of Fighters was taking place before it would turn into its own standalone series. So this stage, seemingly taking place in front of a gigantic audience, is based on the in-universe King of Fighters tournament. The full stage takes place inside of a football stadium, complete with a giant King of Fighters sign with a Jumbotron beneath it. The football field has the Smash logo in the center, with the letters KOF inside of it. The actual fighting takes place on a raised platform at the end of the field. This area has 2 invisible walls that run along the left and right sides. At lower levels of knockback, fighters will just bounce off of these walls. However, at high knockback, they will instead shatter through the walls, resulting in a KO. This mechanic has multiple layers to its origin. Traditional fighting games have always featured an invisible wall of sorts. The actual play area of a stage only goes so far, so even if the design of the stage seems to extend further, characters will still bounce against that invisible wall. However, the way this is implemented in Smash is taken from one specific game in the Fatal Fury series, Real Bout Fatal Fury. These invisible walls still exist. However, if a player is knocked against them enough times, this barrier will be destroyed, and a Smash-style ring-out can occur. However, Smash keeps these walls up permanently and determines the breakthrough based on knockback. Real Bout Fatal Fury, on the other hand, destroys these walls permanently for the duration of the match. Because King of Fighters is ultimately a giant SNK crossover series, this stage takes that concept and absolutely runs with it, including many, and I mean many, background characters. From Fatal Fury, we have Andy Bogard, Joe Higashi, Geese Howard, Billy Kane, Rock Howard, Tung Fu Rei, Kim Kafwan, Blue Mary, Ryuji Yamazaki, Ryo Sakazaki, Yuri Sakazaki, King, Kyo Kusanagi, Iori Yagami, Goro Daimon, Chang Koehan, Choi Bounge, Athena Asamiya, Ralph Jones, and Clark Still. This makes for a grand total of 20 background characters for this stage, which is insane. But it also does a really good job of expressing the crossover nature of the King of Fighters series. They really could have half-assed it, but they didn't, and that's awesome, I respect it. The final DLC stage from Fighter Pass 1 came with Byleth, the Garreg Mach Monastery. This location serves as the setting for Fire Emblem Three Houses. It contains the Officer Academy, where Byleth is hired on as a professor, and it also has a cathedral for the Church of Seiros. There are also smaller areas found throughout the monastery, many of which are explored in the Smash stage. Similar to a previous Fire Emblem stage, Castle Siege, this stage features multiple static locations that are visited throughout the course of a match. A platform will rise up from the ground at one location and carry fighters to the next, and so on. The stage always starts out on the marketplace, at the foot of a large set of stairs. In Three Houses, this is where buying and selling of weapons and gear takes place. In the background of this section, Dimitri, Dedu, and Ingrid can be seen. All three of these are members of the Blue Lion House, one of the 3 houses of Officers Academy, led by Dimitri. Additionally, at the entrance to the monastery, the gatekeeper can be seen. While in the game he's a fairly unimportant character, he became such an incredibly popular meme among the Fire Emblem community that I'm convinced that is the sole reason he was included in the stage. The next location the stage visits is the reception hall. Here, members of the school gather for events, such as the White Heron Cup and the Ethereal Moon Ball. In the background, the Black Eagle House is represented, with Dorothea, Petra, and the leader Edelgard watching on the sidelines. The third location is the bridge, which connects the cathedral to the rest of the monastery. Here, the background characters are from the third house of the academy, the Golden Deer House. Claude, the leader, Hilda, and Lorenz. A Pegasus Knight is also included in the background, referencing the recurring unit in Fire Emblem games that's been seen in the series since the very first entry. The final phase of the stage is the inside of the cathedral itself. Here, members of the Church of Seiros watch the fight: Ray, Flame, and Sedeth. This completes the loop, and the stage returns to the marketplace to start it all over again. Moving into Fighter Pass 2, the first new stage, bundled alongside Min Min, is Spring Stadium. This stage is of course inspired by an actual stage in ARMS, though ironically, Spring Stadium is the home stage of Spring Man, not Min Min. Spring Stadium is a medium-sized arena that has trampolines along the edges, giving players the opportunity to jump high in the air if they use it. The stage in Smash is fairly faithful to the design of Spring Stadium in ARMS, with the exception that it takes place over a giant pit and the number of trampolines are reduced. These trampolines are not always active. For some of the fight, they will simply be standard ground. However, they will flash green and slightly raise, indicating that they are now in, quote, trampoline mode. If a player jumps while standing on this section, they will blast into the air and have their body actually serve as a minor hitbox, capable of hitting other players. With items on, ARMS drones will occasionally fly by with items. This same thing happens in the actual ARMS game, where ARMS drones can fly by with either healing or damaging items. Finally, the background features adoring fans, wearing Smash Bros. Logo shirts of either Spring Man's or Min Min's main color. The second stage added in Fighter Pass 2 came with Steve and Alex, Minecraft World. In Minecraft, each new world is generated based off of a random seed, so that each world is generated at the point of creation and is completely randomized. You can, of course, enter a specific seed to get to a specific world, but for all intents and purposes, each world is completely unique. However, the elements and consistencies in Minecraft is where Smash takes inspiration. Throughout a Minecraft world, players can find many different types of biomes, regions of the land that have different characteristics, such as desert, canyon, or snow-filled areas. These biomes impact gameplay by spawning different mobs and offering different resources, with the additional perk of keeping gameplay fresh so that you aren't staring at the same thing for dozens of hours. Minecraft World in Smash Ultimate takes the idea of biomes and runs with it, providing 6 different variations of the stage, each representing different biomes that can be found in Minecraft. The first form is the Plains biome, one of the most common biomes in Minecraft. The background features 2 houses, a well, some crops, and villagers. This represents villages that can be found in the Plains biome, naturally spawning areas with non-playable characters that serve a variety of functions. Villages are typically much bigger, but this needed to conform to the size of the stage, so it's been reduced a bit. Second is the Birch Forest biome, obviously featuring birch trees. There's not much more to say about this one. Third, the Savanna biome. This biome features acacia trees and browning grass and has a hidden platform inside of the foreground tree. Fourth, the Taiga biome. This features spruce trees and a mossy stone structure. In the background, a footpath can be seen leading to another villager house. Fifth is the snowy tundra biome, naturally featuring snow. An igloo sits smack in the center of the fighting area, and a villager house and set of lanterns can be seen in the background, along with another villager. Finally, the Stony Shore. While this isn't necessarily a full biome, this one represents the concept of exploring and mining in caves, something that otherwise wouldn't have been represented in the Smash stage. Stony shores are usually found in areas where mountains meet large bodies of water, which makes the background of this form make a lot of sense. Along with all of these variations, each form features a day-night cycle. It will start out at daytime, with villagers and animals walking around in the background. When nighttime falls, villagers return to the safety of their homes and the hostile mobs will spawn. Zombies, endermen, skeletons, or spiders. In Minecraft, players need to strategically play around nighttime by either sleeping, lighting an area with torches, or being brave and fighting. Villagers hiding inside their homes is an exact parallel to their behavior in Minecraft at nighttime. Most of the blocks in the foreground of the stage are either destroyable or, in the case of Steve, mineable for resources. Once these blocks are destroyed, they will never return for the rest of the match, leaving the fight to the core stage and whatever platforms exist on the form. For the purposes of Steve's mining, the mineable sections of the main platform are always in the same order, allowing for some consistency. The background of each variant is a screenshot taken from a biome of a real Minecraft world. Interestingly, people have been on the hunt since the reveal of Steve to find the seeds for each of these background images so that you could feasibly play in the worlds in the actual Minecraft game. While claims have been made about discovered seeds, I wasn't able to track any of them down, so either those seeds have actually been discovered and unreleased, or people just be lying. The original concept for this stage was that players would be able to create their own stages in Minecraft and then transfer them over to be played in Smash Ultimate. However, in Sakurai's own words, this idea was impossible. Next up, Northern Cave, bundled with Sephiroth. Northern Cave is the final dungeon in Final Fantasy VII, connected to the planet's core and where the final battle against Sephiroth takes place. The stage loosely follows the beats of the ending of Final Fantasy VII. Sephiroth summons Meteor, a massive asteroid, with the intent to destroy all life on the planet. Cloud and the rest of the party fly into the Northern Cave on the airship named Highwind, which is visible in the background at certain points of the stage. After entering the actual cave, the background pauses on a glowing green orb, which is the holy spell that Aerith cast, being held back by Sephiroth. After Sephiroth's defeat, Holy gets released in a huge burst, and the party escapes the area via the Highwind. The background then shows Meteor plummeting to the ground, but then being stopped by the now unleashed Holy and the life stream of the planet. The background then fades out, mimicking the actual game's original ambiguous ending, and the loop begins again. In Smash, Meteor drops at the location of the Northern Cave, however in the original game, it actually drops over Midgard. While the actual events come from Final Fantasy VII, a couple of elements are borrowed from Square Enix's own fighting game, Dissidia Final Fantasy. Northern Cave appears in this game under the name Planet's Core. The stage and platform designs in Smash are taken from the arena in Planet's Core, and the green speeding background also appears at one point as well. The fourth stage introduced in Fighters Pass 2 is the Cloud Sea of Alrest, bundled with Pyra and Mithra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The stage takes place atop the back of Azurda, a small titan that acts as a combination of Rex's guardian, transport, and home. Rex affectionately calls him Gramps. This form that Gramps takes on is found pretty early in Xenoblade 2, as Gramps reverts back to his larval state during the course of the story and instead rides inside of Rex's helmet. As a stage, this one is pretty simple. Gramps continually flies through the air above the clouds of Alrest, the world found in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Occasionally, he'll turn his head, angling the end of the stage and making it a bit shorter for a while. He'll also make different remarks at various points throughout the match, such as when a player is KO'd, when Pyra or Mithra are being played, or just completely at random. Over the course of the match, other titans will appear in the background. Each of these titans are explorable areas from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Goldmouth, with Maelstrom in tow, Gormott, Uriah, Mor Ardain, Genbu, and Indal. Along with these background cameos, several of Rex's allies from the events of the game will hang out in the background of the battle. There are 4 possible sets of 2, a driver and blade, that can appear. Nia with her blade Dromark, Tora the Nopon, along with his artificial blade Poppy Alpha, Morag paired with Brigid, and finally Zeke with his blade Pandoria. The penultimate stage added to the game is Mishima Dojo, bundled along with Kazuya. As you can guess, this one is really straightforward. It's just a dojo opened by the Mishima family in order to teach students martial arts. The core design of this stage is based on the appearance of the Mishima Dojo as it appears in the arcade version of Tekken 7. However, that stage is itself a recreation of the Pagoda Temple from Tekken 2. The walls and ceilings on this stage are capable of being destroyed by player attacks or players being blasted into them. The dojo's appearance in the console port of Tekken 7 features it partially destroyed after the fight between Heihachi and Street Fighter's Akuma. So while it starts out looking like the arcade version, the destroyable sections equally make it look like the console version. On top of this, the Tekken series does have a similar mechanic known as wall breaks. Certain stages in Tekken 4, 6, and 7 could have elements destroyed during gameplay. However, Mishima Dojo was never one of these, so liberties were obviously taken to improve the Smash experience and pay tribute to Tekken 7's story. Heihachi Mishima appears in the background of the stage. He'll initially start by sitting away from the battle, staring at the Fudo Myo-o statue in the background, a prominent symbol in certain schools of Buddhism. But eventually, he'll react to the destruction around him and KOs by standing up and facing the action. Heihachi's father founded the dojo, and Heihachi himself learned the martial arts there, likely teaching his son Kazuya there as well. The center of the stage features a Dharma wheel, an important symbol in multiple Eastern religions. Inside of the Dharma wheel are the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac, and inside of that, a painting of a tiger fighting a phoenix. The final small detail is found on the floor of the stage. The names of Heihachi and his wife Kazumi are carved into the wood beneath an umbrella. Sharing an umbrella is seen as a romantic symbol in Japan, and writing two names beneath an umbrella is sort of the equivalent of drawing a heart around a pair of initials in the West. This detail can be seen in Tekken 7's version of Mishima Dojo, carried over from the original Pagoda Temple stage during a time when Kazumi's existence was only ever hinted at. And now, the final stage ever added to Smash Ultimate, Hollow Bastion, bundled alongside Sora. Now, Kingdom Hearts is famously a convoluted mess of a story, so I'm not going to dive into the entire history of this location. The short and sweet version is there was once a world named Radiant Garden, a land that was explored and central to the plot of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. This land was eventually taken over by evil, turning it into the Land of Darkness with the new name of Hollow Bastion, first visited in Kingdom Hearts 1. Later on in the series, the town is restored back into a livable region, returning it to the original name of Radiant Garden. This location has made an appearance in over half a dozen Kingdom Hearts games. However, the version that appears as the stage in Smash is quite specifically the very first appearance of the location, as it appears in Kingdom Hearts 1. The stage begins at the Rising Falls, where Sora, Donald, and Goofy land on their first arrival. Eventually, the stage rises high to show the exterior of Hollow Bastion, a giant, convoluted, haphazardly designed castle. The actual castle features a pretty incredible amount of detail that will often go unnoticed in the heat of a battle, so I just wanted to briefly show some of the more impressive parts here. The main stage features similar design elements as the actual stage, from the rusted and broken pipes to the stained glass. It also has a symbol that matches the bigger one on the actual castle, the symbol for the Heartless, the primary enemy found in Kingdom Hearts 1 and the series overall. But this stage has a secondary form that only activates when time, stocks, or health are running low. Dive to the Heart. Dive to the Heart is a more abstract idea in the Kingdom Hearts series. Characters enter a dreamlike world where giant stained glass pillars, called stations, exist. Most of the time, this serves as a character's tutorial where they learn combat, controls, and pick their stats. Sometimes it also serves as the setting for a fight. Stations all have unique stained glass floors, depicting the played character and elements associated with them. They occasionally also show off other Disney characters or locations. When Hollow Bastion transforms into Dive to the Heart, there are 7 possible forms that the stage can take on, each one based off of a different Kingdom Hearts character's personalized Dive to the Heart, featuring characters and elements relevant to their stories. Sora and the Kingdom Key Keyblade, featuring Kairi, Riku, a Palpu Fruit, and the Highwind Ship. The bottom portion represents Destiny Islands, Sora's home world. Riku, with his original Soul Eater Keyblade, featuring Sora, Naminé, and Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. This is bordered by a silhouette of cards as they appear in Chain of Memories. The bottom represents the Realm of Darkness, representing Riku being trapped in this realm at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1. Roxas, also with the Kingdom Key, featuring Axel, Xion, and Riku. The border contains the symbol for the Nobodies, a group that Roxas is a part of. The background features Twilight Town's clock tower, an important location to Roxas' story. Xion, featuring Axel, Saïx, Xemnas, and Sora. As Xion is herself a nobody, the border likewise has the nobody symbol. The bottom portion also features Where Nothing Gathers, a meeting room for Organization 13. Terra, with his Keyblade, featuring Ventus, Aqua, and the Wayfinder charms the 3 of them have as a sort of friendship charm. The border contains both the Wayfinder and Terra's own symbol, and the background is a basic checker pattern containing the series' heart and crown logos, as well as the symbol for the Unversed, the main enemy in Terra's game. Ventus with his Keyblade. Instead of having characters this time, he only has the Wayfinder symbols, likely representing that his soul is lost during the events of the series, and that he really just wants to be back with his friends. His border also has Terra's symbol, and the background depicts the Keyblade graveyard, alluding to the events at the end of Birth by Sleep. Finally, Aqua with her Keyblade, featuring Ventus, Terra, Vanitas, and Master Xehanort. The border has the Wayfinder symbol, and the background is the same as Terra's, with the heart, crown, and Unversed symbol. In the actual Kingdom Hearts series, there are plenty of Disney elements that exist in these station panels. For Sora, the Paopu fruit and the Highwind were originally Donald and Goofy. In Riku's, King Mickey in the organization robe is replaced by Sora. Terra's and Aqua's had Mickey symbols that were removed. However, this Disney removal was actually not completely original to Smash. Most of the Dive to the Heart panels received modifications for the game's 15th anniversary event. At Square Enix cafes, coasters were available that used various Dive to Heart panels in their designs. This is where a majority of the Disney removal seen in Smash actually originates, as seen most notably in Sora and Riku's removal of Donald, Goofy, and Mickey. Smash had other minor adjustments though, such as removing Mickey symbols in favor of other Kingdom Hearts symbols. This is most likely to avoid licensing conflicts with Disney, ultimately keeping everything in Smash focused on the Square Enix original content, which legally is probably much easier to maneuver. And with that, we are done. Every stage in every Smash game representing dozens of franchises with hundreds of references. I hope that looking at all of these stages you learned something new, and I'd love to know down in the comments what your favorite stage in all of Smash is. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, and please remember to be good to one another.